You have to be your best advocate. And that's something my guest today, Thom Harp, writer director of the new film Home Delivery, learned in the 10 years it took him to make it. Along the way, he shot other projects. He took countless meetings. He got scripts optioned. He stayed in motion. And that's something that I just loved about this conversation was it's as much about the making of his new film as it is about just living a creative life and persevering in the face of no, which let's face it, we're going to hear all the time as writers. Doesn't matter what stage of your career, but all it takes is that one yes to change everything. So this is my conversation with writer director Thom Harp. His new film, Home Delivery, is out now in theaters. Here we go. All right, this is the Story Series, the podcast for writers who break the rules. Thom Harp, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ben.
You have a new film out that I want to talk about. It's called Home Delivery.
Yes.
So just right up top, Thom, can you just briefly explain what is Home Delivery about? Because I love this concept.
So, Home Delivery is the story of a plus size supermodel who has met her husband only 10 months earlier in rehab, and she's invited her family to witness the birth of her first child, and it's also the first grandchild in the family. So it's like a big deal. And she has a midwife, she has all this stuff planned, and everything goes comedically wrong in every possible way.
Take us back to that moment where you had that initial spark for this what started as a screenplay.
The origin of the story is that I have three kids, and two of them are biological, and one of them is adopted. And I really wanted to, when we had our first kid, we had a doula, but we did have our kid in a hospital. But we had, because I'm in the industry and I was a cinematographer originally, I had a friend of mine come in and film all of us in the room. She did all of these interviews with us, and the question was, how much do you want to see of what the physical birth
Right.
is? And we were like, we want to see everything. And about an hour in, we were like, this was a mistake to have everyone here. It was it was lovely, and it was beautiful to have like my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law there, and so many people were in the room, and we were all trying to take care of my wife. But she was, naked underneath the gown and trying to get this baby out. And she was in a lot of pain. She went into this tub. They had a tub that you could go into to sort of relax, and it stopped labor. And so then everyone's like, well, what do we do now? And I just felt in that moment, this is funny. Like, and I didn't share that it was hilarious my at the time, but I was like, here we are all, we are all with all the best intentions waiting for this thing to happen that, you know, humans have evolved, we have made it a long time without all of these elaborate plans and without all this stuff. And we're trying to micromanage every minute of it. And I just thought that's as a setup, very comedically rich. But I also really wanted to talk about the other thing thematically that I wanted to talk about was this idea of reconciliation and finding a way to kind of we've had a tough time over the last, especially 5 years. I think that we've gotten more and more polarized, and the movie is not political at all. I just wanted to take small things that were real in life, like where people can pull apart,
Yeah.
and talk about how we can find ways to build bridges.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that polarization that exists, you find it within families. And so there was that nugget of like, okay, there's some conflict. So the writer in you is kind of looking at, okay, you have this concept, there's opportunities for conflict here. And so how do you go about just putting this into motion? What do you do next? You have this interesting kind of hook, but what do you do?
Well, the person who so I have to rewind a little bit, and
Yeah.
and then when you see the movie, the very first credit that comes up at the very end of the movie is for Lynn Shelton, who was a dear friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
And she passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
She had been
He's a great filmmaker.
a fantastic filmmaker, and we had come up in Seattle together. She was an editor on a bunch of stuff, and I was a cinematographer on a bunch of stuff. and we had kids at the same time. So she had had and we talked about how she had had a miscarriage and we had had a miscarriage before our first kids were born. And so I made this she wanted to direct a movie about that or direct a short film about that. So she asked me if I'd shoot it for her, and that was the first time that we worked together. We had known each other, but that was the first time we worked together. And she edited a short film that I did with Sandra Oh, and so we sort of did that back and forth. Then I had a script get optioned and I was like, "Oh, this is it. I'm gonna make it." And the script got optioned, but it never got made. And then I had another script get optioned, but not get made. And in the meantime, she had made a couple of very like micro budget movies. And then she made one called Hump Day with Mark Duplass. And that blew up.
Yeah.
It really became this phenomenon. And so I was like, I'm going to buy you lunch. I'm going to ask you every single question about how to do this because I was really frustrated that movies were getting optioned but not made. And I wanted to be able to get something made. That was the thing. So, she had, for me, one of the things that was really important is she said, you need to contain the film to a short amount of time. And it's not screen length. It's not like 90-minute runtime or anything. You don't want to have it be over a course of lots of days because one of the things that will kill you is actors have to leave to do a costume change. So if it's only over a short period of time, there's fewer costume changes. And so so that was one of the things that she said. Another thing she said is limit your locations because every time, and I knew this as a cinematographer, but every time you um, show up at a location, it's the drive to the location, it's the unloading, it's loading into the house, it's setting up the first, and it's like an hour and a half to 2 hours before you get your first shot. Often, if you do more than one a day, you're losing so much of the day
Right.
to to just travel. So she said, try to keep it to you're in one location per day so that you only have to do it once. And so write longer scenes or have multiple scenes in one location. And she's like, and ideally try to get it so that you can leave the gear there at the end of the night so that you're coming the next day.
You don't have to set up or take that, right?
So that you start and your first shot can then be like 45 minutes into your day instead of an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Her film that she did with Mark Maron, was it The Sword
Yeah,
of
the sort of trust.
Trust? And was that primarily in a pawn shop, as I recall, or something like
It had a pawn shop, and then
yeah.
there's a long sequence inside a truck.
Yes, so yes.
Think about
Yes.
everything that she does.
I'm putting that
There
onto
are
that film.
long
Yes.
sequences
Yes.
in that location because that's that day.
Right.
They're there.
It's brilliant.
Yep.
Okay, and so this happens over lunch. You're kinda downloading this information.
But I don't immediately write
Mhm.
the story because I wanted to find the story that would justify being in one location.
Right.
Often when you see these indie movies that are like in one location, they're not really you can tell that they're just being cheap. And so I really wanted to tell a story that wouldn't feel like it's being cheap. I wanted to have a story that would justify being stuck in a location. And that's when I remembered being stuck from the birth and how we were sitting there and like, what are we going to do now that the labor has stopped? And all of the stuff, the tension that came up during that time, I was like, oh, that's great because it's this, you have this anticipation and then nothing. And
Right.
so then what has to happen is everyone starts to get under each other's skin. Like the excitement of the moment is gone and now you're stuck with each other. And I just felt that was a great pressure cooker moment. So it, you know, it, that's the genesis of that story was I knew that this was something that I could use. And then once you start, I find that with a story, I know that it's a good one if other ideas start kind of being attracted to it.
Mhm.
And so sometimes there's a character that you'll have like, oh, this person is a habitual liar, for example. Not that that's in this story. So what are the worst things that can happen? And what are some other lies that I've, like what are the worst lies that I've been caught in or other people have been caught in? Like, and a really good character will be that, or a good setting will be that. Um, and so, I know that that's the other thing is that if ideas start coming together, then I know it's going to be a rich experience.
Yeah, like this magnetism that you're talking about where the elements feel like they're starting to come together as opposed to forcing it. And I love that just as a lesson, as a writing lesson, where you're talking about what is an environment where it could feel organic that you're stuck in there
Mhm.
for days and not trying to reverse engineer something to fit an indie budget or something, right? Like you're really going through this organic way, which I love. And so when do you start putting kind of pen to paper, so to speak?
The interesting thing about this journey is I'd have these 2 experiences, with things getting optioned and not getting made, and that all happened, and then I had a script that got a lot of people really excited, um, and while I was writing so that's when I signed with my agency, um, and while that was happening, I was starting to write this story. So I told my agent when I was finished, and this was a while ago. This was 2014. Um, I said, I have this one, but I really want to direct it. And I wrote it to be cheap. I don't know if you can do anything with it. But Gersh has and a lot of the agencies too, they have like an indie film department. And the head of that, this guy named Jay Cohen, read it on the way back from Telluride, and he was so bummed out by all the movies that were at Telluride. He's like, none of them were fun. They're all these bleak, depressing movies. And then I read yours, and it was hilarious and hopeful. And so he really worked to get it going. I was still the problem because I hadn't directed anything. So we had it set up at a production so the course of time that it took for me to write it was very fast, like, I
Mm,
think it took me about 6 months to once I realized, "Oh, this is all the stuff together." I was able to get it all in there. Now there's things that changed,
of course. Mhm.
along the way, but it was about 6 months.
About 6 months, and so you're talking about an early iteration of what became home delivery
Yes.
back then in about 2014.
Yes.
And at that time, when you wanted to direct it, what was in your kind of portfolio at that time
As a
to
director?
Yeah,
Nothing.
nothing.
Like, I had done the it's not entirely true. I had done a short film with Sandra Oh
Mhm,
that had gone on the festival circuit and won some awards. I had done a thing that I'm really proud of called Fortune Hunters, um, that was like a long short. It was like a 20-minute short film,
mhm.
and that had also played all around the world. So I was like, "Oh, I've done all this stuff." But neither of them were enough,
Mhm.
and so what happened, quite frankly, is I had a lot of meetings with people, and they were like, "Well, we love the script and we like you, but we just don't know if you can do it." And so what I did was I started working on stuff for Funny or Die,
Right.
and that even though sketch is not the same at all, it's a very different kind of thing.
Yeah.
I got really good at being able to do something all in a day, getting great performances, and showing more of the comedic stuff because some of my other things, even though they were funny, they were also they just weren't as comedic. So I really worked hard on showing that I could do that. What I wrote, I could also direct.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you seemed like you answered it, which was in those meetings where they're like, "Oh, we like this, but we're not sure about you." What do you think, aside from just having feature film experience, what do you think that what that gap was that you were missing in their eyes, and you think it was more comedy chops? Is that what pushed you into Funny or Die?
I think it was just it's very easy. People will look for a way to say no.
Very
That's
true.
the number one thing, and if you give them they will look
Yeah,
for the off-ramp, like,
that's very
that's the
true.
thing, is they just
That's
look for it,
very true.
and so if the off-ramp is, "Well, but you haven't really directed that much comedy," okay, that was the
Right.
off-ramp that they took,
Yeah.
and I think that was my so I responded to that by,
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, if that's what I need to do, then I went for it." and got as much experience as I could doing that. And I was still getting, really good notices as a writer. Like
Mhm.
I got a lot of attention for my scripts.
Mhm.
And I kept getting stuff optioned, but again, not made. And one of the things that happens is once you get something made, it's easier to get another thing made.
Yes.
So
Yes, and on that scale of getting a feature film made, it's like that first one,
it's really hard.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
and how was your working at comedy Funny or Die kinda going back and informing the script? Because obviously it goes through changes and evolves
Mhm.
in kind of the decade that you wrote it. What were some of those kinds of, just things that you picked up comedy-wise?
Well, I think that one of the things that I got really early on, actually, even before this, is I worked with I had a screenwriting partner who had done sketch comedy up in Seattle. And so it was going back to that mentality of like, let's get in and out. Short stories
Mhm,
are different than novels. Short
mm,
films are different than features. And short, and sketch comedy is even different in its own way. So when you're talking about, first of all, what I got was I started getting much more comfortable with working with improv, and encouraging people to kind of play, um, and knowing how to the ways to activate that in a positive way and to create an environment that would be safe and playful so that people knew going in, oh, this is fun, and I can kind of have that moment and really letting things continue to roll, like, and letting magic happen even
mm,
after everything is done. Also being less precious about my own writing, that was something really different than, when I had done the earlier things. I was much more it was much more like, "Hey, if you have a better take on this, let me hear it," like,
mm,
I in, like, the best idea wins. That had always it was really good to have had that experience working with, my former writing partner, but also it was even better working with actors and being like, "Listen, you have to make this alive." It's not if I just wanted it I'm not a novelist.
right,
I'm not saying that I have the final word. I want this to be this living document, as a script should be. People say it's a blueprint, and I really feel like it's more that it gives you a, it's kind of like it brings the it's like bringing a board game over to someone's house, and you have the rules and all the pieces and the board that you're supposed to play on, and what you're doing as the director is you're like, "Okay, here's the game, and this is what we're gonna play, and it takes about this long," and, you're going through that, and you have that experience of you're inviting people to play and to really dig in, and so long as everyone is playing the same game,
mm.
which is the number one job
Of the
of the
director?
director,
Mm.
to make sure that the tone is consistent, that everyone is playing the same everyone is in the same movie, and I've been on sets where some people were like, "Oh, I wanna take it over here," and it might be really interesting, but it's not what that scene or that movie needs.
That's a fascinating observation, which is very true, and I've read I won't say the miniseries, but I remember reading a review, this was years ago, and the review pointed out in this particular miniseries, this actor and this actor felt like they were in 2 different shows,
Mhm,
and I just remember that because that was a kind of an interesting piece of criticism that
mhm.
you just stuck out to me and hearing you say that. So it's not and part of your evolution, it's not that it's every word is so precious. It's that the tone has to be the precious, kinda almost non-negotiable, and then you have room to play underneath
Yeah.
that.
The typical way that I write is I will either have a vision for a scene and I'll write all the stuff and I don't exactly know what people say, but I'll say I'll just throw in the worst dialogue. And I know that it's gonna get then I'm gonna fix it later,
Mm,
but I have a clear idea for the action of the scene. Vice versa, I'll have a very, very clear idea for what the, they're saying. And I'll just write dialogue and not even have any of the other stuff in there because I don't know how it's going to like, some people will have the clearest vision, But for me, what happens is I get these bursts of inspiration of like, this is a thing that I really want them to like. This is the most emotional scene in the movie, and this is what they're going to say during this emotional scene. Um, or I really want to have this take place during this and event, or like I wrote something recently that I had to cut. It bums me out, but there's a parade in Seattle that is like very famously there's nude bikers that go through this, and they're put
Ah,
in body paint. And I was like, that's a fantastic setting for two people who are very straight laced to be just in the middle of.
sure.
And I knew it would make it awkward. And so again, the setting was something I knew, and I knew kind of, I was like, these are the things that they should be talking about. So I roughed in some dialogue for it. And when I came back to it afterwards, I knew where, oh, this is for that scene. So I would write, like, I'd be writing something or typing the dialogue later, and I was like, no, 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 no. That's for that scene. That's where it goes. So I don't always have exactly what's going on,
Mm,
but I find that with the way that I write eliminates writer's block for me because I'm not able to because I don't let myself get stuck. If I'm sitting there and I don't feel the scene, I don't write that scene.
mm.
I'll skip to a scene that I can write.
Something that's comes up in my own work and just on the podcast is that writer's block. I think part of beating writer's block or thinking that it just doesn't exist is if you just stay in motion. If you just, okay, if this doesn't work, I'm going to do this, or I'm just going to write the bad version. I'm going to write the very bad version, but I'm going to fix it because I don't have to show anyone the bad version. But I'm just going to stay in motion. And I feel like writer's block is when you get too either precious about your own work and you freeze up, and then well, then nothing's happening.
Right.
And so if you just I think there's confidence in writing badly at first, right?
Well, for me, the thing that was really liberating was when I think it was Judd Apatow, and I listened to a thing where he talked about his vomit draft.
Oh, yeah.
And it was such a great concept because not only do you understand, oh, this is something that you're just getting out, but also no one is happy about vomit. So you don't have anything precious about that. So the nature of it and the notion of a vomit draft is just get it out and know that you're going to go back
Mm.
to it.
Mm.
Know that the real writing is in rewriting.
Yes.
And that to me was where I was like, okay, I will figure it all out. I will often get to the end of a script. One of the tricks that I learned from my writing partner was because he had done copywriting, was that the letters TK don't exist together in the English language.
Mhm.
So you can put down TK joke here. And
Mm.
then at the end, you do a search or TK detail here, TK do research on blah, 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 blah. And what I would do is instead of going down the rabbit hole for 3 hours on like what national park has a blah 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 and this and like what and then like, oh, let me take a look at arches and let me take a look at the Moab and then I go down. You're sitting there forever online,
Yeah.
or you could write.
What did Tom, the director, learn about Tom, the writer?
That's a good question. Ooh. Um, well, one of the things that I do to help the actors feel, because I think that everyone, when they think about a writer director, they worry that you're going to be precious about the material. So if we got stuck on something, I'd say, what idiot wrote this shit?
Hmm.
And it just cleared the air. And I did that when we did our opening table read. And it was a way for me to say, listen, we're all working on bringing this to life. I try not to write with actors in mind unless I've written something for them
Mm.
because I really want to be surprised and delighted by what they bring. So I don't ever do a line reading. I never say, if I can't, and I often want to see what they're going to bring first. And then I try not to get too married to the idea that I had in my head. If there's something really important tonally or character-wise that comes up later that they may have forgotten in the take, because sometimes that happens where, you get into this moment and you're reading it and I'm like, Yes, but you have to remember later, this line is embedded here because later you're gonna have this thing. And the way you're playing it now is kind of like I'm feeling that you want to piss them off, that you're trying to get under their skin. But really, that's something that you're being very guarded about because you don't want to share.
Mm.
So whatever the case might be in that thing. So that's usually all you have to do is just say, you have to remember that later this is the reason why this is here is because later you have this, when you have this reveal, it's important that that's something that is coming up for the first time publicly.
That's interesting. So it's like you have to be both you have to have kind of the micro view where you're in the scene, but you also have to look back at kind of the macro and say, okay, but you know what? This is going to pay off later.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure that we set whatever this is up here. That kind of
And
thinking.
and that's where the writer makes it really easy because I did have to think all these things through. There's a thing that happens with, I think, horror and comedy where y they both work on automatic responses that
Mm,
you're not like, "I'm trying to get a laugh." You can't control a laugh.
right.
And in horror, you're trying to get a scare, and
Yeah.
that's not something that
Can't fake it.
you can't fake a scare.
Right.
You can't fake a laugh. Um, there are some lines that I write to be smile lines. Like,
Sure.
they're smile jokes. They're not, like, laugh jokes. But then there's others that I want big, like, explosive laughs, and
Mhm.
that's the surprise.
Mhm.
So I often will say, "Listen, I know this material really well, so if you can surprise and delight me, it's gonna do wonders. So don't worry about doing what you think I want. Do the thing that you feel in that moment. Try to keep it grounded in that moment." But as the writer, I'm always keeping in the back of my mind, okay, this improv is great. It's fantastic. It's going, or this reading is going really well, or but the scene is starting to move in a different direction. It's starting to kind of want to inch its way towards an off ramp that the movie can't go down that road.
Right.
Like, the movie needs to get to this next destination. And so that's really, that's where the writer is really useful to have that.
Yes.
Also, there are times when the writer was wrong, you know,
Mm,
and the actor came up and was like, this is not working. And I can't emotionally get here from here. Like, I just can't do that. I've tried in doing my prep, and I said, "So what do you need?" And they were like, "I just physically need this scene to end." In the case of Home Delivery, there was a scene where it's very emotional, and they needed the scene to end to be able to get to this other thing that would have some lightness to it, that it couldn't just go to the light, um, because it felt like literally a hairpin turn for
mm,
this actor,
mm,
which first of all, you have to listen to your actors because you you need them to carry the story on their shoulders, and you also need them to want your you wanna work with you on that, because if you lose the faith of your actors, they may have a contract keeping them there, but that's not the thing that's in their heart keeping them there.
right.
And if they start to you can see, I've seen when I was a DP, I would see on the first and last movie that I shot, I saw the director lose his actors, and it was like,
Mm.
and I learned, and I saw it on another short film that I did. It's like, "You've lost the cast."
Mm.
And so they'll do it. They'll say the lines. There won't be any of the joy or the excitement there. So that was a really early lesson when I was,
That's a great
looking through a lens and just
yeah,
seeing it.
to not lose your actors by kind of imposing your vision without listening.
It listening is the whole, and honestly, one of the biggest notes that I give actors is, "I feel you loading your next line.
Ooh.
Just listen."
Huh.
And if that line doesn't come out of what they have said to you, don't say it. Like, listen to them and let it, because I know that what I'm looking for is also the thing on the face that might make the line totally disposable because I'll see something in their eyes
Mm.
that will then completely tell the story. And if I don't need that line, I don't need that line.
Mm.
If that close up does it,
Yeah. Right.
cut.
Right.
Yeah.
Ah, that's it, there's a it's not completely one to one, but there's a story I remember about Mike Nichols when he was
My
doing
heroes.
right
Yeah.
when he was doing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and which is his first film.
Which is also a pretty contained
Actually, that's
movie.
funny. It is. It is very
That is
contained.
one of the ones that I watched.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? That is
Yeah,
interesting.
before Donor Party, I watched that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That would be a great reference. Intense, but a great reference. And it was like the first shot, and one of the crew, not the cast, but the crew said something to another crew member about, "Just give me another movie," or something like that. And he overheard it, and he fired that crew
Mm.
member on the spot because he wanted to set an example and a tone, and just this is the we're going to care about what we're doing. We're not just gonna shrug it off, and that's just that made me think of not wanting to lose your actors, your cast, just your team,
Mhm.
and to maintain a certain level of energy, and it's there's a lot of moving parts. It's not just what you see on screen, it's everything around it that you as the director kinda have to keep an eye on. You're constantly juggling, right?
You are I think the thing that always helps me is that I'm not the kid who just came out of film school and made their feature. I what my own personal story is that, I dated this woman in college. We broke up and because she was gonna go abroad for a year. And then when she came back, we didn't connect on that level. We stayed friends, but regret I regretted that decision the rest of the time in college because I was like, God, she was amazing. And when she came back to, she said, "Oh, I'm going to be in California studying for my MCATs because she wanted to be a doctor." And I was like, I am going to tell her that I love her and that I will do whatever it takes to be with her. Um, which sounds super stalkery when you say it like that. But so I said I did that. I went to where she was staying. She was staying with her grandmother, and I brought a pie and gave the pie to her grandmother and that I made. It was not like store bought. I was like, here's all this pouring myself into this thing. And I told her how I felt. And she said, my wife said, well, who's now my wife, spoiler alert. Um, she said, I feel the same way, but I'm here studying for my MCATs. I'm going to get into med school, hopefully. And then I don't know where I'm going to get in. I don't know what's going to happen. I was working in commercials in the Bay Area, and I just was like, it doesn't matter. I need to say yes to this life experience.
Mm.
So went, I followed her to Alaska where she had been born. So we spent 2 years in Alaska while she was finishing up her like prerequisites and all that kind of stuff and did her first year there to Seattle, where she got into the University of Washington med school, to Portland, where she did her intern year, back to Seattle for her residency. And we decided, she said, I'm going to, be like mid to late 30s by the time I'm all done, maybe. So we need to start having kids now. And I was like, yes, sure. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I said yes to
Mm.
life experiences. So I when I wrote, it was during the kids' naps. Um, so that's another way that I learned to write really fast and really be focused. And it was like, I have 40 minutes. What can I write? What scene can I write in 40 minutes?
Mm.
What scene can I write with them when they went to preschool? What can I get done in 3 hours? Like how much can I get done in 3 hours? And that was really a vital way of being able to prepare for when I'm on set and someone says, "Oh, I can't get there." I was like, "Okay, at lunch, I'm gonna write the scene." And I wrote a whole new scene.
Mhm.
And we came back from lunch, we did the scene. So that was the reason why when you see the movie, the camera never looks at the table is 'cause the script was on the table.
That's great.
Um,
Oh.
so those are the kinds of so what I got out of all that is the reason why I bring all that up is that I am not a spring chicken. This is, I'm later in my, like Lynn Shelton, we both got to making our first movies later in life,
Mm,
you know? And for me, that means I know how hard I've worked and how long it's taken to get here. I had a 10-year journey to be able to get home delivery off the ground. So every day I start the day, the assistant director did her safety warning, like today we have blah, 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 blah. And today, and then I would have 5 minutes where I talked about someone or a department who went above and beyond in the crew. And it was kind of like my 5 minutes of gratitude. I would
mm,
call out something that was really amazing. And it wasn't a competition for people to like get named. I just took the time to be in gratitude. And it turned out that that had never happened before to any of the crew.
mm,
They really appreciated that. And I did that on both movies, and people followed me from one movie to the next,
mm.
even if the pay was less, because they were so happy
Huh.
working with me.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest thing in the world. And this is my advice. At the end of the movie, I called every agent and every manager and thanked them for supporting me and for helping get their talent in the movie. I just recently sent another thank you card to everyone who was involved in home delivery because I was like, and I think gratitude is the way that I choose to live my life. It's not fake. It's like because I know what it means. I don't think that I deserve this. I don't think that I'm owed this. We're never owed anything. You have to work and you have to show that you have a vision that's worth people putting their money into or
Mm,
giving their time to or investing their energy in. And when you do that, when you express how grateful you are for their talent, they add more. It's like
mm.
it keeps going.
You're setting a tone across
Yes.
that. That's beautiful. I
So,
really love that. Tom, just as we come to a close, I like to ask everybody the same question,
okay.
which is, what is a rule in our industry that you believe is worth breaking?
It's a fantastic question. Um, because I think that most of the rules that we're told for screenwriting are useless. I think that this the way I found my voice was through writing the movie that I wanted to see in the way that I wanted to see it. I made it entertaining for me to read, and those are the ones that started getting noticed when I stopped. Like my descriptions are funny. I'm like, I want to be entertained from the jump. I want it to be fun. So I write the way that I want it to. And does that mean that sometimes my scripts are slightly longer because they're fun to read? And some of the stuff is stuff that you're never going to see, but it makes it fun. Yeah. And I've never had a complaint of like, it's too long. It's like, it's 2 pages longer than probably the running time would be, but you are having a blast as you read it. I will want it to feel like you're watching the movie.
Mm,
So I really believe in that. But I also think the other thing, if I can get a bonus round, is you have to be your own best advocate. The rule that y- reaching out personally is always the thing that makes the most sense. Like, I've been told by people that when I wrote to them and said, "You were amazing in this movie," that made them want to talk to me. And I'm not saying badger people, but if you have, like, it's great if you have an agent and you have a manager and you have a lawyer and all that kind of stuff. It's great. They're there for you, they're your team. But you have to do the work for yourself. And if you are really passionate about something, you have to go for it, and you have to, y the gatekeepers are not there to it's easy for people to say no. Like I said earlier, everyone wants an off-ramp, but if you have a really strong connection to something, you have to just go for it. That's the other thing. So that's my bonus.
Tom, your film, Home Delivery is in theaters right now. First, just congratulations on having a movie in theaters. That's just such a big deal.
Yes, it
I
is.
wish you all the success with
Thank
it, and I can't wait to see it. And just want to say thank you for coming by and doing this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Brandon.
Thank
This has been fun.
This is great. Hey, before you go, thank you for listening. If you want more episodes like this, make sure to hit that follow or subscribe button. And while you're at it, grab my free guide, The Rule Breaker's Guide to Finding Your Creative Voice. It's a brutally honest roadmap I put together, built from the lessons, mistakes, and breakthroughs I've collected along my journey as a writer. You can download it for free at storyseriespodcast.com. See you in the next one.